One challenge I faced was last year, my first year as captain of the Ultimate Frisbee team. We faced a 20% budget cut, and additionally at the beginning of the year one of my co-captains had to step down, leaving 2 people to do a 3-person job. This was pretty daunting, especially since we couldn't really rely on the blueprints for how previous years were run, as those would have left us significantly over budget. So we kind of had to replan the entire season structure, starting kind of almost from scratch. Especially towards the beginning of the year, I was filled with a lot of anxiety about my fitness to kind of fulfill this role, and worry that I would kind of lead to the ruin of this team that had meant so much to me. As the year progressed, however, I learned to have a lot more confidence in my ability to be an effective leader, and kind of realized that while I might have personal doubts about my fitness, this was the role that they had assigned me. And I had to do, in order to do the best job I could, I had to stop spending so much time worrying about my fitness to do the job, and spend a lot more time actually doing the things I was supposed to be doing. So once I kind of adopted this mentality, things started running a lot more smoothly, and we actually ended up having one of our most successful seasons ever, in spite of the budget cuts and in spite of having 2 completely new captains. And learning to have this confidence in myself has kind of been a milestone, if you will, for me, as someone who has had a lot of self-doubts in the past. The ability to devote myself completely to the job and not worry so much about if I'm capable of doing it has been a big learning moment for me. I'm interested in working with students from low-income communities because I think that a strong public school system is an integral part of our nation's success. I think that currently low-income urban communities have underfunded public schools, and I want to do whatever I can to kind of bridge that gap and ensure that everyone has access to a quality public education. I've been lucky enough in my life to have some amazing teachers in public schools who have shown faith in me and gotten me excited about learning. And they've been very formative for me, for my growth as a person, and I want to have the same impact as a beta, to kind of teach kids to have confidence in their own abilities, and also to teach them to love learning the same way I do. Indicators of success are always a tricky question. I think one of the advantages of Blue Engine is that there's such a small teacher-to-student ratio that indicators can be a lot more personalized and tailored to the individual students, so you don't kind of have to try to fit the same mold to an entire classroom. That being said, I think in general, measures of both understanding of material, but also enthusiasm and engagement with the classroom are the best indicators for student success. One thing that made me pause in this article was Ms. Alexander's anecdote about seeing the flyer calling the drug war the new Jim Crow, and her thinking that such a title was counterproductive and was almost an absurd claim to say that anything in modern America could even remotely approach Jim Crow, because I think until that point I'd viewed her choice of title as hyperbolic, and also just a callback, a reminder of the history of racial segregation in America. But that really made it clear that she really does believe that kind of the societal harm perpetuated by the mass incarceration system is actually on a level of Jim Crow. My question about this article is in a similar vein as Ms. Alexander clearly had a previous understanding of racial discrimination, as she did choose to work for the Racial Justice Project with the ACLU. And so if she thinks that the mass incarceration problem is so much worse now than she did when she first started that job, it really raises questions about kind of the pervasiveness of this problem. As clearly someone who's had an exposure to the racial bias in the criminal justice system and has a deep understanding of it, for her to move so far into thinking it's such a bigger problem in just 10 years really raises questions about how kind of insidious and pervasive this system is in American society.